PaintballAccess.com will be bringing you all the action from the PSP Dallas Open live March 14th through the 16th. Don't miss it. Welcome to the breakdown brought to you by PaintballAccess.com. We are just a very short time away from the very first PSP event of the 2014 season. Dallas is coming up March 14th through the 16th. I'm Matty Marshall here with Todd Martinez, and the schedule is out. The champs and challengers divisions are going to be throwing down to see who the best teams in paintball are. It looks like the event is also going to be a sellout too, so really big turnout for the first PSP event of the year. Now, since the schedule is out, we're going to give you a couple of our picks and kind of give you guys a little bit of insight into what we think are going to be some of the most compelling games. Now, of course, we always have to give this, kind of on the flip side is that any one of these games could be really fascinating. You never really know what's going to happen when you watch a professional paintball game, especially with all the crazy stuff that's happened in the offseason. So, Todd, give me your first game. You looked at the schedule now. You kind of, talked a little bit about it. And what do you think are going to be the most fascinating games, at least in the beginning on Friday?
Matty, it's a new year. Everybody's come ready, hungry to play. It's the first event. The first event is always everybody's best opportunity to come out and punch somebody in the face right off the get. And the first two games we have are Houston Heat against Omaha Vicious and San Diego Dynasty against Chicago Aftershock.
You're throwing a double pack at me right away?
Right at you right away.
Double pack right away?
First thing in the morning.
God, you're supposed to pick one game and you just, I understand though, because with as many good games, again, there's, every single day we have all these teams throwing down with each other. So, yeah, we're going to give you some of our picks and who we think is going to win. But, I understand. All right, give it to me. All right, who do you think? So Heat and Vicious, and we're talking about 9:45 a.m. Friday the 14th. And that's, coming at you from Dallas. And then the next game's at 10:30, I believe, right?
Yes, first thing in the morning. Houston Heat and San Diego Dynasty, the two best teams from last year. Dynasty won the first two events. Heat was able to win an event. Heat had won events the previous years, firing on all cylinders. This is going to be the two best games. Houston Heat versus Omaha Vicious at 9:45. Dynasty Shock at 10:30. Vicious, my team, Aftershock, played really promising in the World Cup last year, got themselves back into the Champions Division, picked up Chris Sosine, picked up some new players over the offseason. They're coming ready to fight. Talk about this layout. We're going to get to that in a little bit here, but I feel like these two teams, right after that, these first two games are going to be amazing. Because why not start the season off with a couple upsets? The top two teams from last year against the two bottom teams coming into the Champions League, why not?
Well, I think that's kind of a good point that you make, because when you're looking at Vicious taking on Houston Heat. Now, Vicious actually has pretty much the same roster from last season, and you guys earned your way to head back into the Champions Division. And then on the flip side, same with Shock. Shock's had pretty much the same roster for a while, and they're going against two, Dynasty, obviously, very established team. Houston Heat has had a lot of turnover in the offseason. They have like 4 new big-name players on the team. Now, they have put in a massive amount of practice time, and you know that. Vicious knows that. But I agree. I think that it would be huge, and if you're going to get at Heat, you got to get them early in the season.
Yeah.
Because they've got, obviously, when they got Tim Montrester, Greg Sewers, and Ryan Moorhead coming over from Edmonton Impact. Have they had enough time to gel? I mean, our first game of the first event, are they going to take you guys lightly? Maybe. It's just one of those things. Don't really know. And then Shock playing Dynasty. I don't know, man. I think that could be an upset. What do you think?
Hey, there's a million ways to look at it. It's the first game in the morning, Heat against Vicious. The layout's going to be crazy. The best time to get somebody is when they least expect it. Heat's coming off another, 2 great seasons in a row. It's the first event of the season. The time to hit them is right first thing in the morning, first event. It's also the time for them to be like, we've been preparing super hard all off season. It's time for us to show up and perform. But if you're going to catch somebody slipping, first thing in the morning and the first game of the first event is the time to do it.
Well, I think it's great also that you guys are playing Heat and then Shock has to play Dynasty because you got to earn it. At this level, I mean, you might as well start off with a hard game because you're going to find out where you're at.
Well, the reason why I like this game is because Dynasty lost Dalton Vanderbilt, and they don't think they picked anybody up or they have any plans of picking anybody up, but they still have a solid roster. But Chicago Aftershock, over the past couple years, the way that we've watched them grow and rebuild their team is to be an all-out attacking team all the time. Mm-hmm. And they've picked up a couple other players like Chris Sosane, who's a smart gun battler, can shoot people on the break, Carl Markowski, who's fast, who's all-out attack all the time. They got guys, Aaron Tholey, that want to get up there and attack. That's the way that this field layout's going to play out. So is this the year that Chicago Aftershock finally shows up and starts punching good teams in the face from the get? This field is catered to their style of play. And now they have more confidence, now that they've spent some time together, are they going to show up and beat a good team?
Well, that's what I was going to say, but I don't know. It's going to be hard for Shock because it's been a crazy winter, so they haven't had the practice time that Dynasty has. But we will just have to find out. So 9:45, Heat versus Vicious, Friday morning Central Time, and then 10:30, Dynasty versus Shock. It's going to be crazy. Now, my pick for the morning bracket, at least, I think that San Diego Dynasty, we just talked a little bit about them, but they're going to play the LA Ironmen, and that is just that quintessential awesome rivalry between the two powerhouse teams from Southern California. And you have the Los Angeles Ironmen who have, you want to talk about a team that has a completely renewed vigor for that win to try to get back onto that podium space and hoist that trophy again. It's definitely the LA Ironmen. I mean, you're talking about Shane Pistana bringing his royalty boys, coming over and merging with the LA Ironmen. So you got the best of the royalty with the best of the Ironmen. And the tough thing for them is that they got to figure out who they're going to play with. 13 guys on the team right now and not a lot of time left before the first event. We're going to find out, and we'll bring it to you guys when we figure it out, who is going to be playing, first of all, on the roster, and then second of all, who's going to start on that team. Obviously, they have some stars that, of course, are going to play Marcelo Margot, Alex Goldman, but then they have some young stars. I think that Brandon Cornell kid, man, 17 years old, playing on the Snake side, that kid has a legit chance to be a star. We will see. And then, of course, Shane Pistana. He's never touched the Ironman franchise and not won a championship. It may take some time.
We practiced with them past 2 weekends in a row. Alex Rodriguez and Nate Schrader, man. These two kids are balling out of their minds right now. They're young. They're hungry. They want to get after it. They haven't been there for those championship seasons. They're hungry for it. They want it. They want to get after it. Those two guys are going to be huge for the Ironman this year.
Yeah, and then when you look at Dynasty, Dynasty, yeah, they did lose Dalton Vanderbilt off that D side. Okay, fine. Then that means what? Oliver, the Top Gun title holder, Oliver Lang, quintessential, most amazing pro to walk the earth. That sort of guy. When people talk about Oliver, they talk about him in very revered tones for a reason. And then you can't count out guys like Ryan Greenspan. So, okay, yeah, they did lose Dalton, but why can't you just throw Ryan over there? Because think about it. Rusty Glaze, in their 2013 series championship that they did win, Dynasty won 2 events last year. They took second at the 3rd event in Chicago. But I think that Dynasty might come with a chip on their shoulder for this season because they did not do that well at the end of the year. They got shut out twice at World Cup. When was the last time that we were talking about Dynasty getting shut out in games? Never, right? Okay, so at World Cup they got shut out twice. And, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that, Rusty Glaze has been cracking that whip. And I know for a fact that Ryan Greenspan has been chomping at the bit to get more chances, more looks, more spins, because he only played half the points. So I think that could potentially be a really good matchup to set the tone for the rest of the tournament. So 12:45 Central Time, Dynasty playing the Ironman. Todd, what do you got next for us?
Well, the next, I'm going to have to go with the Friday 4:30, Friday late afternoon game, right before the last game of the day, second to last game, Tampa Bay Damage taking on Los Angeles Infamous.
Yeah, that could be a good one.
Tampa Bay Damage has got to be one of my favorites this year. They have their main core that's been around for a long time. They pick up Jason Wheeler. Mm-hmm. They got Brian Smith, who came back last year, missed a couple events. They might not have Daniel Holiday for the first event, but these guys, they're so cohesive of a unit. They got Jacob Edwards back, playing with his brother. The way that those two guys play together on the field is just super dynamic. And, Infamous has had their number. Even back to 2012, when we saw the rise of Infamous, it was because they grinded out a lot of hard practices against Damage. These teams are very familiar with each other. They know how each other are going to attack. Damage went after a couple Infamous players over the offseason.
Couldn't get them.
But guess what? That makes all for the making of a great, fierce battle when it comes to Friday afternoon. I think both these teams are, I'm watching the infamous guys grind hard all offseason. Zach Patience back. Drew Templeton's on top of his game. Damian Ryan's on top of his game, and you can never sleep on Nicky Cuba. You get Nicky Cuba spins, he's coming to kill people. This is going to be a battle for the ages.
Well,
right
and
here.
they got, can't count out Callie Rudolph and Drew Templeton. I think you mentioned him actually, but the thing is that, look, Infamous, they are going to come with a renewed fire this year. You want to talk about a team that underperformed last year? I mean, come on now. Like, every single one of those guys over there, I've talked to them, and I guarantee you they understand that, look, the fact that Infamous played in a bunch of relegation games last season, that hurts them. That hurts them mentally. That hurts them, at that core where you kind of judge yourself with that no BS, okay, where am I really at right now? And they are totally at that spot where they want to come in 2014. They got some offers. Guys got offers on that team, but they decided to stick together. And yeah, Damian Ryan is a virtual wrecking ball. He's a beast. He's been going out there and just decimating people, putting ridiculous stats up. And then not only that, so yeah, Damian's playing a lot of points. He plays almost every single point. But when you go literally man through man, every single person on Infamous' squad, that's a stout lineup, man.
Same
I
for
mean,
Damage.
they have a stout lineup, exactly. But when you look at Damage's lineup and a couple of the pickups that they got the younger Jacob Edwards, the younger. They got so there's two Edwards brothers. You have Jason and Jacob. The younger one came back. He played for Houston Heat most of the year. So they got him back. And then they got Jason Wheeler, who had a good season for Moscow Red Legion. Moscow Red Legion did not do well last season. So now Jason's coming over. And then they got Downton Vanderbilt. So, but when you go literally look, paintball's a game of positions. And when you look at it positionally, my God, Tampa Bay Damage has a ridiculous roster. So I totally agree. I think that 4:30 p.m. Central Time, man, on Friday, that is going to be a crazy game. And you definitely got to watch that game. But I'm going to trump you on your pick real quick. Because and this is an easy pick, honestly, and I think anyone could look at Friday's schedule and think, okay, well, this is going to be a good game, is we have a rematch from the World Cup Finals where Edmonton Impact will be taking on San Antonio X Factor for the last game of the day at 5:15 Central Time. Now, that game is going to be awesome because if you really think about it, now Impact has had a lot going on in the offseason. They lost three of their major players. They lost Tim Montresor, Ryan Moorhead, and Greg Sewers, who went to Houston Heat. But then they did a little bit unconventionally. Instead of going after seasoned pros, they ended up going after some young, hungry guys. They got Nick Laval off to 187. I'm a huge Nick Laval fan, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do this year because he has that weird mix, that very rare mix of intelligence and a giant chip on his shoulder. And you will hear us talk about that because you kind of have to have a little edge to you when you walk out in those nets that you think that you're the guy. You're the guy that's going to go out and exert your will on your opponents. And Laval has that. They also got Danny Park from the Ironmen to help them complement their snake attack. So Impact, and then they got Rainey Stanzik. The Impact is definitely stacking up the roster.
And Ryan Martin, who can play anywhere.
Exactly.
Those are four solid pickups. And when you talk about a team, you want to have a high level of talent across the board. The better chances you have to winning tournaments, building your team in the offseason, you want to stack talent. It's a lot harder to get talent than it is to try and figure out how do they all work together. Like you look at the Miami Heat basketball team. Everybody wants to play for the Heat. They talk about who's going to take the back seat tonight, who's going to be the guy that leads the team tonight. They have so many different guys that know how to win. Impact's the same way. They got the Yakimek brothers who
have
played
really
awesome.
Stepped up the past couple seasons.
They have Dave Baines.
Yep.
They have all their new pickups.
The Justins.
They have Justin Cornell and Justin Rabakov, two of the most dynamic players, both play on the snake side, could play anywhere on the field. It's all about how you utilize your talent. So coming into this season, Impact, they have a lot of really good players. They have a high level of talent across the board, and I think they have some smart coaching and ownership behind them that they're going to be able to put those guys in position to be successful.
Yeah, Bart Yakmek is definitely one of the best owners in the game. But if you look at it on the flip side, San Antonio X Factor, talk about awesome owners. Alex Martinez has spent so much time cultivating the talent on that team, and those guys, homegrown talent, Archie Montemayor, Colt Roberts, just weapons, regardless. It doesn't matter what day it is. It doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter what the field layout looks like. It does not matter. Colt Roberts and Archie Montemayor are always going to be in your face and getting it done. Also, Grayson Goff has really emerged as such an amazing, solid player. Grayson Goff is one of those guys that has really taken it upon himself to kind of prove to the world how good he really is. And I mean, for a while, he was the top-ranked player in the stats. And check out our stats on PaintballAccess.com from the past 2 seasons. And we'll be having all the statistics coming at you for 2014 as well. But man, you want to talk about someone that was not only contributing mentally and being a presence, but also on the field, somebody you were looking up to and somebody that was statting well. Grayson Goff did great. Billy Bernaccia potentially on this layout could play great on the snake side of the field. And then Scotty Kemp, who they picked up, who was playing for the Ironmen for years and then went to Infamous briefly for World Cup and then played all season last year on X Factor. He had an amazing World Cup. So when you look at X Factor, the fact that they're the world champions, the defending PSP world champions, playing the same team that they played in the finals, and when you break that game down, it was a combination of Impact getting some inopportune penalties, with X Factor just refusing to say die, and any opportunity that was given to them, they took advantage of that. So, you know, that's going to be an awesome battle to end the day. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I talked to Bart about that game, and he wasn't so upset about the penalties that they got. If you will go back and watch the game on Paintball Access, they fought through those penalties. There were other games or other points in that game that he said, this is where we lost those points.
That's a smart
This is where
owner.
we lost
That's
the
a
game.
smart coach. That's a smart owner.
Because they got those major penalties and they fought back through those penalties. But you know, it's just, you know, that's why paintball, you know, it's a game of inches. Yep. You know, they fought back through those penalties, but there were other points in that match where they lost it. They're going to be coming hungry, ready to beat X Factor and show that game belonged to them. But it's a whole new season.
Oh, it's going to be
a
great
whole
way to
new
end the
season.
first day, though.
Yes.
All right, so take me to Saturday, though. What do you got for me Saturday?
Another game from World Cup that I really want to see is coming on Saturday at 11:15. San Diego Dynasty taking on Houston Heat. Houston Heat shut out Dynasty to go to Sunday at World Cup. This is going to be a game that Houston Heat really wants to come back again and beat Dynasty, and Dynasty wants a little redemption for that 7-0 beating.
Well, I'll tell you what, Todd, the next game I'm going to bring up, we're going to finish with this one, but there's a similar situation as far as being shut out, because how many times have we seen Dynasty be shut out in the history of Dynasty? Dynasty does not get shut out. I mean, they may lose some games here or there, but we're talking about a team that has over 50 tournament wins in their history, a team that is the 2013 PSP Series Championship, or has the championship, and a team that won 2 events last year and took 2nd place. Then they go into World Cup and fall apart. And it was kind of a little scary to watch and weird to see, because that was not what we expected out of Dynasty at World Cup. And I believe they got shut out twice that event. So to have Dynasty get shut out, not score a point in 2 separate games, is very, very rare. And I think that they will be playing with that memory here when they head into the first event. And I think that that's a good proving ground for them as they play this revamped Houston Heat squad. And I can guarantee you that, you know, Dynasty's been doing their homework. We've had great weather in Southern California. They've been putting the time in. And I think that's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, coming at you, 12:45 on Saturday.
All right, so this is going to be one of my favorite games to watch. First of all, there's a little. You want to talk about grudge matches? We got a grudge match for you. Here's the deal. So the best players that have ever played the game of paintball in the country of Russia are now playing for a team called Art Chaos. Art Chaos is a new team in the PSP. They've been playing for the past couple years, dominating in Europe, doing really well. They're coming into the PSP because you can't just walk into the Champions League. You have to earn your way into the Champions League. The Champions League is the 10 best teams at any given time in the world. And I think that you can't really argue that at this point. I don't care what league we're talking about. That is pretty much a fact at this stage in the paintball game. Now, they're going to play Moscow Red Legion. Art Chaos is going to play Moscow Red Legion at 12:45, which actually corresponds, I believe, to about 10:45 Moscow time. So you're going to be able to watch this if you're living in Russia. And this is such an interesting story, because now you have any young player that's playing for Moscow Red Legion that's about to play this game in both of these teams. So Moscow Red Legion is the most dominant team ever in the PSP. They've won more tournaments in the PSP than any other team since the modern age of the PSP, since 2003. So you're talking about the most dominant franchise ever in the PSP, playing potentially one of the most, if not the most talented team in the PSP, though they're in the Challengers division. So there's a lot going on here. And if you're a young Russian player and you're standing across and you're looking at Mishka, Fedorov, Sergey, Malloy, Alexander Burnikov, all these guys that are just about as legendary as it comes, you're probably potentially going to be a little intimidated. But Moscow Red Legion picked up most of the starting line from the Tauntauns. And so this all of a sudden becomes a very interesting matchup because the Tauntauns aren't scared of Art Chaos.
No.
The Tauntauns have beat Art Chaos before.
Yes.
So I think that that's going to be an awesome game to watch.
Yeah, the Tauntauns, we watched them play last year. We know these guys have talent.
Absolutely.
If you watch any of the webcasts from the Millennium, you know that the Tauntauns can play. They won, I believe, 2 events last year in the Millennium Series. That's the same roster, same 5 guys that started in the PSP last year for the Tauntauns in the PSP and the Millennium Series. So Moscow Red Legion picking those guys up, it's a crew of guys that is ready for Art Chaos. If there's one team that's ready to stand up, strap up, and play against Art Chaos, against Panteleev, Lukashuk, Fedorov, these guys, they're not scared of them. And just the fact that it's the 2 names, Moscow Red Legion going against Art Chaos, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a bloodbath, and it is going to be live at 12:45 on Saturday.
Yeah, so 10:45 Moscow time. Not sure what that translates to the rest of Europe, but a couple hours before. So regardless, I can't wait to see that game because, you could look at it on paper and be like, okay, Art Chaos should stomp Moscow Red Legion because, Moscow Red Legion had a terrible year last year. Talk about getting shut out. I mean, they lost all 4 games at World Cup and didn't look great at all. But they still have some young stars that have come up, and then I think it was a huge move to go and get those Tauntaun players. And I talked to Jason Wheeler, and Jason Wheeler was like, hey, be careful. Moscow's got an ace up their sleeve.
And don't forget Axel Godin, who was a Tauntaun, is now playing with Art Chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So it gets a little crazy. It gets some very interesting though. So, but that's why I love the league this year, man. Every single game, we're giving you guys some highlight games. So go online, check out the schedule for yourself. Read up, see what's fascinating to you. Because to me, honestly, we could tell you a story about every single game here that would make it interesting for you to watch because there's so much going on this year, so much turmoil on these teams in the off season. And there's a lot at stake this year. So I'm excited. All right, so what do you got next for me, though, on Saturday?
On Saturday, I'm going with the second to last game of the day again, X Factor Infamous. X Factor, on their road to the championship and World Cup last October, they won a game that knocked out Infamous. So I feel like Infamous,
a little bitter.
It's going to be their last game of the preliminary competition for Dallas. And, you always got to get as many wins as you can, and they're playing against the team that knocked them out of World Cup. So I feel like this is going to be a good battle. Brad McCurley from LA Infamous, great snake player. Great snake pickups, or great snake play from San Antonio X Factor. You got Bernaccia, Kovar coming back, good pickup right there. I think it's going to be a nice little snake battle on this field. We saw a snake similar to this in Galveston a couple years ago, which made kind of, like a real kind of interesting dynamic. It was like a slow-played snake. This field layout's going to be crazy, but I really want to see how the snake battle plays out in this game between X Factor and Infamous. And then, it's pedal to the metal on the Dorito side for both of these teams. Infamous got the Bornstein brothers now. You got Colt Roberts playing over there on the Dorito side. Drew Templeton, we'll see where he ends up on the field. Callie Rudolph for Infamous. But I feel like both of these teams match up really well, so I think it's going to be a really exciting game. Plus you have that little bit of, hey, I remember you guys knocked us out. We want to fight for it. 2 teams that played for relegation a lot last year, want to stay up in the Champions League and be a top 4 elite team.
Which is weird to say, but that's the way that the Champions League works out. You have all these really good teams throwing down every single event 5 times a year, and yeah, there's going to be some casualties there. And fortunately for Infamous and for X Factor, neither one of those teams ended up losing any of those relegation games that they had to play. Yeah. But what if they had to play each other in those games? I mean, you never know. And so, so now you're facing a situation where Infamous got knocked out by X Factor. And, memories are long in paintball.
Yeah, we very well could have seen Infamous playing for the World Cup championship the next day.
And that's the thing, is that's the frustrating thing for Infamous, is that when you look at that roster and you look at what's capable of that, I mean, first of all, Infamous is one of the only teams there's only been, I think, 5 teams that have won an event in the past 2 years, and Infamous is one of those teams. And the roster is pretty much unchanged. There's only a couple differences. One, they lost Greg Sewers, and they lost you as a coach. But other than that, that's it. I mean, it's the same team that they had that you helped lead to victory at Chicago. And so we know what's capable out of that talent. We know when game plans are applied. We know when focus is tuned, what's capable from Los Angeles Infamous. But we just didn't really see we didn't see the potential last year from that team.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, Matty, I know what they're capable of. And watching last year, it was frustrating for me. It was kind of hard, but I'm glad that they stuck together, because those guys sticking together, they were a young team. They came in first season, won a game as a group. Next season, sophomore slump, it happens, okay? But guess what? They stuck the team together. Third year, sky's the limit for these guys. They got the talent. They know what they need to do. They know how to win. It's just a matter of fact of putting all those things together, then coming back and attacking and playing that top-level paintball that we know they're capable of, game in and game out. And that's what we missed last year. It was like, that's why you saw a lot of slow starts. Win a point, lose a couple points. Win a point, lose a couple points, then have to fight back and win games. That's not Infamous. Infamous is all-out attack all the time, and I fully expect to see that, and X Factor is the same way. If these guys get their minds right, come in ready to play, know what they're capable of, it's going to be all-out attack all the time, and we're going to see a collision course right in the middle of it.
Well, and it's interesting because on this, and we're going to get to this field layout in a second, but I think it's interesting is that I think that this field layout might be a little similar. It's not similar to World Cup, but I think that aggression is going to prevail. I think aggression and situational awareness and the ability to play counterpunch paintball and not necessarily just conservative dig-in paintball is going to win the day on this particular field layout. Now, we will have to see how that plays out, but I think that one of the reasons that X Factor was so successful was because they were so tenacious at World Cup, but they were also willing to go into the breach. They were willing to attack. And you looked at teams like Damage and Dynasty, and they didn't do that great at World Cup because they had that we're going to play smarter than you, we're going to play slower than you, that kind of like stalemate paintball look. And it didn't work out for them, and I don't think that's going to work out on this particular layout. Again, you really have to kind of see how things play out because we're going to give you guys a basic. If you're a divisional team out there and you're listening, wait for a second. We're going to have Todd break the field down for you guys. But I think that that's kind of an interesting thing. So let me work it into what I think is going to be a fascinating game to end the day. Edmonton Impact, Tampa Bay Damage. That's the final game from the West Coast Open. And Impact was so hot last year. I mean, they never achieved what they wanted to achieve, and then they got dealt that blow in the offseason by losing those bodies, by losing Montresor, Sewers, and Moorhead. But then they brought all these guys back, brought those new guys that we just talked about in, and so they've got this reformed team, and then they're playing Tampa Bay Damage, who also didn't necessarily have, even though they did win a tournament, didn't really have Damage is. They're that team that if they take second place, that's it. It's a disaster. Yeah. And they got a great coach in Kevin Brettauer, one of the best owners in the league. I mean, and I just think that's two Titans hitting, and also it's the last game of the prelims. And as we well know, sometimes that dictates who's going to go on. So that could be a crazy game.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. This is going to be a crazy field layout, like we've been saying. Last game of the day against two Titans. It's going to be wild.
So talk to me a little bit about this field layout. What were your first impressions, talking about just maybe on the snake side? What do you think is going to happen on the snake side? It looks like a pretty crazy snake.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really feel like you got to take a risk. You either try and run to that corner. I feel like both corners on this field are very easily shootable. So I feel like you're going to have to take a risk. You might as well run to the snake or run to the mini race bunker behind the snake. That or you're going to have to go guns heavy really hard on that snake side of the field. So there are no easy bunkers to make on the snake side of the field. So you're either going to have to hit your shots or take risks and hope they pay off. I feel like the guy going up the middle is going to have to commit to either staying home and getting a kill on one side or another, or get straight up the middle of the field as fast as you can. We've seen this field layout. Not this field layout, but we've seen field layouts over the past couple seasons where there is no back center. And, I think that that's great. Some people may say that it's more difficult to play the field. There's no, easy turnaround, sit and shoot for guys. But guess what? It's a new day. It's a new age. And this field is all about athletic paintball. You're going to want to attack. You're going to want to get your good guys up the field. And that's what paintball is all about. So I feel like having these really tough to make spots on the snake side of the field and a wide open middle of the field with no center bunker that's anywhere close by the flag station. You're going to have to get up the field. You're going to have to hit your shots on the run. And all the people that have been doing their fundamental drills over the off season of snap shooting, running and shooting, it's going to pay off. The Dorito side is a little bit different, having that pin over there to where you can come into that pin, shoot across both sides of the field, but also really take away that Dorito side corner. It's going to be a tough matchup of people running and jousting and playing that can on the middle of the Dorito side field. I think it's going to be risky to run out to the Dorito side corner, but if you hit your shots on the break again, you're going to have to look to make quick, smart, athletic bumps up the field and control players with your gun. It's going to be tough now playing at 10.2 balls a second. It's a new factor to throw into the field layout and everything that's going on here. But
because it's a chaotic layout.
It's a chaotic
There's a lot
layout.
going on. And we were talking about it before we started the show, and there's just a lot of options for you as a coach to kind of throw different looks at teams.
Yes, there's so many different things that you can do, between putting a power move one way or another. And even if you commit 3 bodies to one side, you still have to hit your shots. Guys are still going to be standing in the wide open, trying to shoot guys in the wide open. So, your paint, making sure you take care of your guns, all those little things are going to play a huge factor. But, it's really about all the guys that have been doing all the drills in the off season. Like we said, with these first games, it's the best time to hit somebody is when they least expect it. So first thing in the morning, coming out, it's the first tournament. Everybody's got their jitters. Nobody's played a serious tournament in 4 months, 5 months, and now all of a sudden, it's full speed ahead. So I really feel like the people that have been doing their work, putting in the time in the off season, those are the guys that are going to get up and going a lot faster, and this field's going to pay dividends by those people that get up there and start attacking right away.
What do you think about the center? The center looks like you can do some stuff up there. I mean, obviously you can always do something up the center, but I think with the non-characteristic or non-traditional snake, you have some new bunkers this season. It's also offset a little bit, so it's like a point pointing towards the actual sideline, and then there's a lot going on the D side. What do you think about that center?
I feel like
some of the most charismatic moves you see are up that center.
Yeah, I feel like it takes a very intelligent player to be able to read what's going on, to be able to play the center. Because if a team really tries to go out wide and shoot back up the center, well, that obviously gives you more freedom to try and run far and run wide up to the sides. So it makes your center guy have to be more effective running up the center, shooting people, or at least going up there and making sure that he takes people out of the sideline attack. So I feel like the center guys either got to get up there right away, or you just got to get out of the center completely. Like I said, it's going to be crazy. There's so many different things that could possibly happen.
All right.
But
if you're a divisional team and you're listening, which is probably the majority of the audience, if you're a divisional team and you're listening in, give them just one basic layout. What would you, 5 guys on this field, at least if they're going to practice, they're trying to play this layout, what are you thinking?
I feel like you have to take a risk on the snake side, either run straight to the snake or run to the mini race bunker behind the snake. The corner, it's always a harder shot, it's deeper, but I feel like if people aren't shooting, protecting back up the middle, that people will be able to stand in the flag station and just gun down your corner guys. The guy that's on the inside of your one on the snake side, he's going to have to turn and make a shot on that temple and then find a way, whether it be come out and up or go up and out across to that first temple on the snake side. That middle guy is going to have to get up the field, and snake side, 80% of the tournaments ever have been down the snake side. So, having that middle guy go up there and commit to shooting that one guy on that snake side is going to be huge. Your 2 on the Dorito side coming out to that pin, making sure to take away the corner to make it easier on the 1 on the Dorito side, who's going to have to pick between going to the corner or coming out and up and jousting on that can on the Dorito side.
There you have it. There's your basic layout. So start with that at practice, see how it transpires, and then, change it from there. So, man, thank you guys for tuning in. And I can't wait for this event. March 14th through the 16th, the very first PSP event of the season is going down in Dallas, brought to you by PaintballAccess.com. Pretty much sold out event, but make sure you guys sign up for the next one. You want to go to PSPEvents.com, get your team in the fight. Thank you guys for tuning in. Also, we are going to have fantasy paintball coming back at you for this season, so stay tuned for details. And that's going to be pretty cool too, man.
Can't wait.
I can't wait to get some fantasy in there. Yeah, it's going to be great. So thank you guys for tuning in to The Breakdown. I'm Matty Marshall with Todd Martinez. We'll see you next time.
How many countries I've visited,
how many miles you've traveled,
how many paintballs you've shot at different people,
how much baby powder I've used, how many hotels we've trashed,
how many places I've driven,
how many guns I've gone through,
how much I love the game,
all the times that you had to tell your family that you couldn't be there for this or that because you were going to play paintball.
how many friends I've gotten out of it.
That's just why I love paintball.
That's why I love paintball.
That's why I love paintball.
But that's why I love paintball.
massive opportunities, both with the sport of paintball and for your business, if we are successful in taking our sport to another level. Unite with Paintball Access in our quest to elevate paintball and broadcast it to the world. There are advertising packages available for any size business. Join us. Advertise with PBA and help us change the sport for the better forever.